Borana part of Ethiopia. So I went to Kenya and started doing research on the Marsabit Boran and Gam. So for the next, from 74 to 84, I was coming every fourth year to do studies of Oromo culture. I could do a lot of historical research. They knew quite a lot about warfare, about horsemanship, about love of horses, about rules that govern the raising and keeping of horses. They told me, for instance, about the fact that the penalty for killing a horse is gar, the price of a human being. The price of killing a female horse that is pregnant, it is rifens mata, that is unlimited. And so the only thing that you can do is you can have to leave the country. So this is how honored a horse is. Now remember, my first encounter with the Oromo was in Turkey, horseback riding. Now I come to realize that horses have a tremendously important role in Oromo culture and in Oromo warfare, because their warfare was built partly on the use of the cavalry as a supplement to head-on fighting. So now, crossing over to Kenya, in a way, I had to retool. I had to restructure my studies. I couldn't do a study of Geda because Geda is lost in northern Kenya. Why is it lost? Because the British are ruthless rulers. They are worse than the Ethiopian side. The Ethiopians, at least, they put pressure on people, but only such pressure as people can tolerate. They try to introduce the Gabbar system. And Borana says, what on earth is Gabbar? They said, well, you have to feed the Naftanya who are settling in your midst. You have to pay them part of your income and support them. And they said, well, you mean you're going to become Tisele? We won't. They just abandoned the whole thing and moved over across to Kenya en masse. Huge numbers of Borana. And the British welcomed them, saying these are refugees from Ethiopian injustice. These are the same people who are saying that we wouldn't allow Oromo to come to their territory. But now here they are saying they are refugees from Ethiopian injustice. So the Ethiopians were at a loss. They tried to say, bring back, give us our Gabbar. And they went deep inside Kenya to try and take them back. The British said, not on your life, you can't do that. This is international territory. They stopped them. And so they basically gave up on that. But the British also were pretty ruthless and started putting all kinds of pressure on the Borana. Taxes and inflation of prices and all kinds of rules limiting their movement, taking their wells away and using the wells as a way of punishing people. The British were really pretty ruthless. And so they hated that as well. So anytime the British put too much pressure on them, they cross over back into Ethiopia. And so they used the border as a means of negotiating with two colonial powers. They did it very effectively. RC, on the other hand, they didn't have an international boundary to which they can retreat. Borana did. And they used it all the way until the end of the period that I'm studying to take shelter outside of the territory of the government that is exploiting you. So the more exploitative they became, they just crossed over and started living on the other side of the border. So they were straddled across the border. Incidentally, between them, there was a no man's land controlled by Shifta. Who are the Shifta, do you think? They were Tigrayan hunters who were they went after elephant tusks. They were very rich. By selling elephant tusks, they were making a lot of money, and they were not governed by Ethiopia or by Kenya. They had their own territory. I mean, a no man's land that's controlled only by the Shifta. And both of them, the Kenyan government and the Ethiopian government, attempted under Emperor Haile Selassie during his early period of rule, whilst he still was Rastafari. They attempted to jointly take campaign against the Shifta, and they were defeated by the Shifta. The Shifta were fully armed, but they made deals with the Borana because they needed food. So the Borana would give them food and they would give them weapons. And so that was that was the way in which the Shifta and the Borana managed to retain control of the territory, and that became the way Borana survived this very difficult period of transition. And so on the other side of the border, most of my research was not on Geda, but on ecological adaptation. So I changed my strategy completely. If I can't study Geda, what else can I study? Well, there are two famines in the territory. As you know, 1973 in Ethiopia and throughout Africa was a disastrous year. There was a big famine. You remember the Wallo famine. It was just as devastating on the Kenyan side. It was a very painful experience for them. And so I was there during that year. I was there also in 1984, another big famine, equally destructive. So in both situations, what I studied was how do people survive? What indigenous knowledge do they have that allows them to survive? And